Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
A magic beyond anything you could ever imagine.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Sagrera Farms on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day.
You really think that's the best idea?
Live from the Raising Cane's studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
It's quite a piece of work.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Thursday, working towards the weekend, brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Got Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. Appreciate you hanging with us. Luke Johnson talking Saints in 15 minutes. Is the SEC dead in football? Seth Emerson did a poll. We'll talk about it in 30 minutes. I got some big picture LSU athletic department things to talk about later on in the hour. Saints have a big decision to make on a rookie option. We'll do that at 2 o'clock. Ross Jackson's got a good piece on it at louisianasports.net. Chris Blair at 2:15, and Mark Etheridge from D1 Baseball is going to be with us at 2:30. You heard that right. We're going to talk some baseball at 2:30. They've got their SEC previews every podcast, one podcast a day to preview every team. The LSU podcast dropped yesterday, so you can find that wherever you find your podcast at Highway to Hoover. We'll talk to Mark about what he thinks about the Tigers and some big picture SEC baseball stuff at 2:30. I know you're ready. I know that because of some of the stuff we saw last night, and that's where we start with our opening drive.
Welcome to the big league.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive. Presented by Fabry Chevrolet GMC in St. Francisville.
All right. I think this is where we start. I was wrong. Dead, flat, wrong. I was wrong. I don't think I apologized for it. I don't think I was blind. I was wrong. Because last night, essentially with the season on the line, LSU welcomed in a Mississippi State team that lost 5 games in a row. They welcomed in a Mississippi State team that was not very good on the defensive end all year, not very good on the offensive end all year. And they got annihilated from the jump. They were down 10 after less than 4 minutes had been played. They were down 20 after about 10 minutes had been played. In the second half, they didn't cut that thing within 16 until there were 30 seconds left in the game, thanks to a flagrant one foul that probably shouldn't have even been reviewed. They were annihilated from start to finish by a poor SEC basketball team with the season on the line. I told you yesterday, if LSU can contain Josh Hubbard, not let him go for 30 points, keep him under 20, LSU would win the game. LSU held Josh Hubbard to 15 points. He went 1 of 6 from 3. LSU got destroyed. I told you that LSU would win the game by 10 points or more. They got destroyed. I told you that if LSU won on Wednesday and on Saturday, this thing had a chance. They got destroyed. And I'm wrong. Again, I don't think I was blind because I think this is reasonable. Now, most of you listening will go, Hunt, you're an idiot. And I don't have anything really to refute that. But I will give you my honest opinion as I've done with this the entire time. Because we're done with Mississippi State 80, LSU 66. They no shut on defense. They no shut on offense. It's over. But I don't think this is unreasonable. Matt McMahon came here and had no players in the NCAA with a sledgehammer standing right behind his shoulder. He had no shot in year 1. Scrap it. Year 2, they went 9-9 in the league. Okay. Year 3, the wild, wild west was upon us. Everybody could spend as much money as they wanted, wherever they wanted, whenever they wanted, however they wanted. LSU spent almost nothing. He had, in my opinion, no shot to be competitive in that landscape at this job with that amount of money. And they got annihilated. And I said, okay, right before revenue sharing comes in, you can front load these contracts. You can pay these players as much as your program is willing to get behind them. And by all accounts, LSU rallied the troops. I have heard that from people in basketball. I have heard that from people in the athletic administration outside of basketball. They gave basketball a chance this year financially to be competitive in what is the toughest league in the sport right now. And that was where the rubber was going to meet the road. That's not me talking. That's the athletic director talking. We need to be in the NCAA tournament. Verge Osbury said that on the record to The Advocate. Matt McMahon stood here for anyone to hear it after they went 9-9 in year 2 and said, we didn't come here to play in the NIT. We got to get in the NCAA tournament and start winning games in the NCAA tournament. And LSU backed this roster financially. And I believe watching this team play, that team is functional enough to win some basketball games in the league. I don't think that's unreasonable. I watched him play against SMU. I watched him play against Arkansas. I watched him play against Kentucky. I watched them play against Texas A&M. I've seen them play good enough basketball to win games in this league. But this team, which has everything on the line, has played its best basketball against teams it's probably not going to beat, and that's why they didn't beat Arkansas. That's why they didn't beat Kentucky. That's why they didn't beat Texas A&M. And they have played their worst basketball against teams they should beat on their home floor. Awful basketball against South Carolina. South Carolina is terrible. Awful performance in Baton Rouge. Mississippi State is not any good, especially when Josh Hubbard plays poorly, which he did last night. And you, not only did you lose, you got annihilated. Everyone is aware of what was on the line for this program and this coach this season. The backing was adequate, and frankly put, the job has not been done. And I was wrong, but I don't think I was unreasonable. 99% of LSU fans will stand there and laugh in my face at that. And that's okay. Like, I'm not here to always be right, and I'm not here to cover any tracks. Everything I say is on the record. I either write it on the internet or I say it right here, and you can go back and listen to it wherever you want. But this is not about me. This is about the LSU basketball program. And the scene in the PMAC last night reminded me of the scene in Tiger Stadium when Texas A&M left town. Now, Texas A&M had a good team that you were not competitive with. Mississippi State has a not good team that you were not competitive with. But when you look in the state, in the arena, and you see an empty stadium that doesn't care, just a few boo birds kind of shower right before the half, but it's empty with 4 minutes to go. You see a fan base that does not care. That's loud. I will say this, and this is where the Texas A&M football comparison comes into town. I don't really get a lot of text messages about basketball. Doesn't happen a lot. Get a lot of text messages every weekend during baseball season. Get a lot of text messages about football. I don't get a lot of text messages about basketball. I got 15 last night. And you look at this team and where they sit in SEC play, it's obvious. The base, the support has left. And I don't find that to be something you can recoup. I looked across the teams in the Power 5 leagues. The ACC does not have a single team out of 18, not a single one, that is looking for its second league win. Everyone in the ACC has at least 2. The Big 12's got 16 teams. 3 of them have 1 or 0 wins. The Big East has 11 teams. All of them have at least 2 league wins. The Big 10 has 18 teams. 4 of them have 1 or 0 wins. And in the SEC, you're lumped into a group with Oklahoma right now. There are 81 teams in the power conferences, and there are 8 of them in LSU shoes right now. 81 teams, 8 of them have 1 or 0 league wins. This is a hard job. LSU basketball is a hard job. But if you get the support in this city, wins are expected. Gymnastics has the support. They win. Women's basketball has the support. They win. Those 2 teams vastly outdraw the men's basketball team in their own arena. Baseball gets support. They win. This past year wasn't good for football, but on the whole, football has won. Men's basketball has not. It's a hard job. But you were on a level playing field this year. You were not in year 1. You were not in year 3. And that's inarguable. You were not on a level playing field in those 2 years. So I don't hold those against Matt McMahon. This year, you have a real shot. And you look up and you're 1-7. Those are the facts. And at this point, you start looking to the light at the end of the tunnel. And that's disappointing. I'm going to watch every game from here on out. I will pull for them every game from here on out. But I'm simply not going to put my head in the sand and suggest something that's not true. And the fact of the matter is that you've played 2 of the worst teams in the league on your floor, and you've been non-competitive. And it's nice to play well and to play close against A&M and Arkansas and Kentucky and all that. But if you lose the game, it's a zero-sum game. I've talked about that for a week and a half now. You are what your record says you are, especially in a season as consequential as this one to the men's basketball program. This is untenable. I called last night a must-win. I'm not going back on that for 1 second. They had to win last night. They did not. Your writing's on the wall. Our Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Looking for a different way to do beef, you can do it with Sagrera Farms. Some of the best beef in the country. It's just north of Baton Rouge, like 20 miles up the road in Ethel. And it's an incredible facility. I was able to go right before Christmas to see Sean, see the entire facility, see the operation that he's got going on there. It's first class. There are 2 places in the world you can get Sagrera Farms beef, Supper Club and the farm. If you want to buy beef a little differently, you want to make sure you've got prime Angus beef in your freezer for months to come. You go to Sean and say, hey, let's get it done. Let's get a quarter of a cow. Let's get a half a cow. Let's get a whole cow. Go in with a group and purchase some. Divvy it out. It's great to have awesome, tender, flavorful ribeyes in the freezer, to have fillets, to have flank steaks. Great to have ground beef, to do burgers like we've done a bunch of times at the Palmer House. It's all prime, and it's all great. You check them out at Sagrera Farms. When we come back, we'll talk Saints with Luke Johnson next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hitter's House at Marucci, always open. They want you to swing on by, take some hacks in the cage. Baseball season's coming fast. Softball season's coming fast. You got a youth baseball player, softball player under your roof, get them over to Marucci. Take some hacks, especially when it's this cold outside. You don't want to go hit outside. Protect yourself from the elements. It's also a great place to go take a tour. Why would you take a tour? Because they make the official bat of Major League Baseball right there at Marucci, and they make 1,200 of them a day. What a cool thing to go take your baseball team to before their season starts, to go take the softball team to before the season starts. Take the family to. Go check it out. You can get tickets at maruccisports.com/campus-tour, and every ticket comes with a 20% discount on the Campus Tour store and in the Hitter's House. It's Marucci, online at maruccisports.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Let's transition over to football for a couple of segments here. We'll do so starting with the New Orleans Saints. Luke Johnson with us on Thursdays. Joins us on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Luke, how we doing?
Doing great, my man. Thanks for having me on.
It's our pleasure. Saints brass over in Mobile for the Senior Bowl, as they are every single year. I know Jeff Ireland's done some talking to the media. Mickey Loomis is around town as well. The Saints used the Senior Bowl for 5 picks last year, including their quarterback. How big a week is this for New Orleans?
Yeah, it's always a big week for them. They put a lot of stock into this, into the Senior Bowl. I think the like college showcase games are changing a little bit. You're seeing more players go to the East-West Shrine Bowl and some of the other showcase games, but they devote a lot of attention and resources to this one in particular, and I think for good reason. You know, you've seen a lot of good players cycle through there, and that's no different this year. And on top of that, they are getting real, no kidding, exposure to a lot of these guys with their coaches on staff. I mean, Joel Thomas, the Saints running backs coach, is a head coach of one of these teams. We've got several other staff members working on these teams, including Scott Tolzien, who, he might be one of these guys who's not on the Saints staff, by the end of this month, or the end of next month. But they are getting real exposure to them. And they've put a lot of emphasis into this kind of year after year. You see it in every one of their draft classes.
What do you think they're looking at down there?
I mean, I think they should be looking at everything, right? Because as encouraging as this end of the season was for the Saints, I think you'd be kidding yourself if you said that they're set at any position on the roster. Yeah, you could say quarterback, right? Like they're not going to draft a quarterback with their number 8 overall pick. I think we all expect that, right? But I think you got to keep your eyes open to everything, and that includes the skill position guys there. It includes obviously the interior offensive line. They need help there, but I think they could use some help on defense still. Like as good as they played last year under Brandon Staley. This is still a unit that was in transition from Dennis Allen's personnel on a 4-3 defense, primarily man-based coverages, to Brandon Staley's 3-4 defense that plays a lot of zone. I think they're going to be casting a wide net there, and they don't know exactly how free agency is going to play out. They don't know if their own players are going to sign elsewhere. They don't know which players they're going to bring in, so they can't really just focus on any one position, if that makes sense.
Let's talk about a guy that is on the roster right now, Demario Davis, who's made it clear he's going to play football next year, but has not made it clear that'll be in New Orleans. What do you make of those comments?
Yeah, I found him interesting because it's a little bit different than what we've seen in the past out of Demario, who's been very consistent in saying that this is where he wants to be. I don't think that's changed necessarily, but I do wonder, and this is really just speculative. This is just me wondering. If the Saints are looking at how they've built this roster in past years, and they're maybe prioritizing different things now. That's not to say they don't want him back. I mean, Mickey Loomis came out yesterday and said that they do want him back, but I do think that with Demario and even Cam, they probably want him back at their price. And in past years, maybe we'd see him, pay a little bit more than probably market rate to keep really popular guys in, really guys who've been really important to this organization for a long time. I'm not sure if they're going to continue to do that. And for Demario Davis, I mean, he has taken probably well below what he's been worth for the last 6-7 years. Like he came in and signed like a 3-year, $24 million deal in 2018, and like immediately was way better than that. And he has basically not gotten a raise that entire time. So if the Saints are coming in and saying like we're going to once again pay you below that, maybe he's like, well, maybe I'll find a contender that's willing to pay me more than that for a year. I don't think it's a money thing for him, but I do think that like all of the other things that go along with it, with the Saints' status of trying to rediscover being a contending team, with the money being a part of it, I think that's making him open to the idea of doing it somewhere else.
So if he's not back, and you look at Werner, and you look at Stutzman, you look at Stallbird, and whatever they've got behind that, like how do you feel about the Saints at linebacker? Should Demario Davis sign elsewhere?
I mean, I don't feel as good about it. Like I think Demario still played at a very high level, even if he's not the same type of dominant player that he was 5 years ago. He's not as good in coverage or in space as he used to be, where he was awesome. I still think he's a very good player, and I think that you're losing something beyond just like what he brings as like a physical presence on the field. Like you're losing somebody who's like a supercomputer out there and really gets other guys in the right spot. And you're also losing something in the locker room. So like there's stuff you lose, but as far as like from a pure playing perspective, like I'm ready to see more of Danny Stutzman. Like I think he looked really good. If it were me, I would probably want my two to be Demario and Stutzman, and see if you can listen to some stuff on Pete Werner. But they might feel differently about that, and they might want two younger guys there. So I don't know. I think they feel they look pretty good there now, but I think you could be removing something that's hard to quantify in Demario Davis.
Whenever I listen to talks about free agent contracts, sometimes players want security years-wise, sometimes it's about the value of the contract annually. When you look at Demario Davis, do you feel like he's just wanting to make as much as he can this year? Do you think he wants a multi-year deal?
That's a hard one to answer, honestly, because like he's been such an atypical player in terms of contracts.
Yeah,
like I just said, like he's if he would have been on the open market, if he would have been willing to entertain that for a number of years, like he would have made a lot more money in his pro career. So I don't really know the right way to answer that. I don't know if anybody's going to be willing to give him more than a 1-year deal. Not with any like guarantees in the second year. He's going to be. I think he already is 37. If he's turned 37 this month, so that's a hard position to stay relevant at that age. We saw Demario Davis do it this year. We've seen guys like Levante David and Bobby Wagner do it. But if you look at Levante David and Bobby Wagner this year, like they both fell off a cliff. It's even for the guys who are freaks who do it much longer than you ever would have expected them to do it. It's hard to maintain that. 2 years would be kind of hard to imagine. But like maybe that's what he's looking for. Maybe the Saints are like, hey, we'll pay you $6 million to come back, and he's like, well, I'm worth at least 11, 12. I just like I think there's a lot of different ways that you could look at this. He's just a really interesting player because of the way he's handled these contracts in the past.
It's a fascinating deal. On the other side of things, you've got a rookie option the Saints have until May to deal with Bryan Bresee. I wanted to get your thoughts on that. I'm going to talk about it coming up in about 30 minutes. But what are your thoughts on the prospects of Bryan Bresee's deal and whether or not they extend the 2023 first-round pick?
Yeah, I would expect that to be they don't pick up the option and they do re-sign him. I think he's a good player. I think he played a lot better this year as a complete player, even though his numbers weren't as good as they had been in previous years. His sack numbers are way down in this defense. But I think for the first time in his career, he was at least an average run defender, which he was well below average for the first 2 years of his career. But the fifth-year option on that deal would probably be much more than they would be paying him in a renegotiated extension. So it's kind of they've done this in the past. They declined the option on Cesar Ruiz and ended up signing him to an extension that same year.
Yep.
They declined the option on Mark Ingram and ended up signing him to an extension the same year. Like I don't think this is like a Trevor Penning situation where even that one, they were declining the option on a tackle salary because they were planning on playing him at guard. Like that made sense. But even then you'd be like, well, he hadn't produced in his first couple of years. So like, this is really like a put up or shut up year for him. I think Bresee has produced and he has improved. So I would expect him to have a future with the organization. I just don't expect him to be on that fifth-year option.
Luke, we appreciate a little bit of time. We'll be thinking about the whole Johnson clan, and we'll talk to you when we talk to you, man.
Yeah, sounds good, buddy. I appreciate you.
He is Luke Johnson with the AdvocateNola.com, giving us a little black and gold time. Luke and Chelsea expecting a new one at some point here very, very soon. So that may be our last conversation with Luke with a little bit, but we'll still talk about the Saints when relevant, and we'll tag team some of his associates down there in New Orleans to continue the black and gold discussion. I still think it's a big week, and I want to see when it comes to a conclusion, kind of what the overall thoughts were. We'll talk to some Saints as we keep moving forward here in a very, very consequential offseason for New Orleans. Our Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. When we come back, there's a lot of thought about the SEC's spot in college football because they have not appeared in the last 3 national championship games. I'll talk about that with some anecdotes from a poll that Seth Emerson did over at The Athletic. We'll do it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Ochsner's Eat Fit Alcohol-Free for 40 Challenge. Registration is wide open. You didn't have to start January 1st to make it happen. If you're looking for a fresh start this spring, Ochsner's Eat Fit Alcohol-Free for 40 Challenge. Ready to roll. 40-day reset to help you sleep better, boost your energy, and feel your best. They're not telling you give everything up forever. Just a little reset, help you sleep better, and see what the results may be beyond that. You may see blood pressure changes, may see body composition changes, and you have labs pre and post challenge that will give you that data. People that have done it report clearer skin, more focus, brighter mood, and have mentioned better sleep. And it's often within the first couple of weeks. So Oxygen will support you with zero-proof drink ideas, nutrition tips, and a community of people that are taking on the challenge together. Registration's open, so whether you want to join it officially or take the challenge from home, it's your chance to get in and feel the difference. Sign up at alcoholfreefor40.com. That's the number 40. Alcoholfreefor40.com. Thanks to our friends at Oxygen.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Big picture conversation on LSU's athletic department. It stems from last night's basketball game in my opening segment where I kind of declared, look, it's writing's on the wall now. And so I want to talk about where LSU's athletic department is and specifically what to make of the LSU men's basketball job. So we'll do that in 15 minutes. I found an interesting piece on The Athletic today by Seth Emerson. They surveyed just over 1,000 SEC fans. Now, I deal with fans every day. I'm a fan myself. I realize fans can be a little bit irrational. And so I account for that. Fans have blind confidence. You won't find a single LSU fan on August the 20th who thinks that LSU is in trouble next year. Just like you didn't find any LSU fans August 20th this past year thought LSU football was in trouble and they face planted. It's just how August works. It's how fans work. Confidence is a good thing. Passion and energy are good things. So I understand the way fans are wired and understand that when you look at a survey of fans, you're getting generally a homer perspective. And I'll tell you this segment is not coming from a homer perspective with the SEC. I hate everybody in the SEC. I want them all to fail miserably. That's how I've been wired my whole life. So I'm not trying to defend the SEC because of my allegiance to the SEC and how strong I want that brand to be. Screw that. I hope they all suck and LSU beats them all. But I was curious to read this. And the point of the survey was to talk about whether or not the SEC's grip on college football was gone or whether the SEC's day was over, the SEC had slipped. And they had various questions that they asked throughout. Are you worried about the state of the conference was one of the questions they asked. And if you're a non-SEC fan, how worried should the SEC be? Next question was, what's the biggest reason the SEC has missed the last 3 title games? They gave options of transfer portal, NIL, Nick Saban's retirement, or bad coaching hires. Also, what are your feelings about the health of the SEC since last year? And all these questions, I'm not here to read the results of what the fans think because it's not really relevant what a bunch of people from Iowa, Indiana, California, Alabama, Georgia, and Texas think. Like, that's not really the issue. But I wanted to have the discussion of, like, what's quote-unquote wrong with the SEC in college football? Why was the SEC not in the title game the last 3 years is part of it? And is that a slight to the conference? We all know that the SEC went on a run starting with Florida in 2006 that was legendary. Florida won in 2006, LSU won in 2007, Bama won in 2008, or Florida won in 2008, Bama won in 2009 and 10, you had Bama in 2011. And then you rolled through Cam Newton. I was in 10 and Bama in 11. And you had that ridiculous run where you had Tennessee, we had Florida, LSU, Alabama, and Auburn all winning different titles. And then down the line, Kirby showed up and he started ripping them off too. And you had Georgia in the mix. And so you had Oklahoma and Texas who have won titles in the last 25 years. And you realize that you've got kind of a monopoly outside of Ohio State and Clemson on titles. And then you see Michigan throws their hat in the ring. And this year really upset the apple cart with Indiana. And you feel like the wealth is being shared. Now, that run the SEC went on was unprecedented and remarkable. But I'm not here to tell you that I think the league's fallen off a cliff, okay? You didn't make the title game in 2024 because Jalen Milroe got stopped at the 3-yard line in overtime against Michigan. Like, that's how close you were to beating the eventual national champs. And that wasn't even the best team in the SEC. But Milroe, overtime, didn't quite get there. The following year, you didn't make it, and I don't know if it makes a difference or not, but it is a talking point. Georgia's starting quarterback couldn't play in the Sugar Bowl. Carson Beck went out, and they had to go to Gunnar Stockton, who hadn't played that much, and, that's a big deal. To lose your starting quarterback in the playoffs is a big deal. And then this past year, Ole Miss eliminated Georgia at the gun in front of my own two eyes in the Sugar Bowl, and then Ole Miss went out to Phoenix and lost to Miami at the gun. And I thought Miami played Indiana pretty tight. Now, Indiana was the best team, but the SEC, it wasn't like they're non-competitive on the biggest stage. They're losing at the gun in all these games. Or their starting quarterback goes out. Georgia held Notre Dame to 23 points in that Sugar Bowl, but they didn't score any. Scored 10. Yes, Alabama has taken a step back. That was always going to happen. Kirby's juggernaut is not there. It's just not. But I don't believe that we're entering an era where a bunch of teams that have never had a shot are going to immediately win a bunch of national championships. I believe the Blue Bloods will continue to show up. I believe far more teams have a chance to win the national title than they once did. We went over that right when Indiana was winning because I would have never included them to have a chance. And now you do. You got to get the right coach. You got to find the right players. You got to pay them the right amount, and you got to form a team. But because Indiana won the championship, that does not mean next year's playoff is going to include Cal, Washington State, Boston College, Kansas State, and all of a sudden we're going to look up and Bama and Ohio State and Tennessee and Texas are going to be gone. It's elevated the bottom of the league, the sport, and it's brought the top of the sport down a couple of rungs. But the top of the sport is still above the bottom of the sport. You'll have an Indiana pop up here and there, but Georgia's not going anywhere under Kirby Smart. They're not staring 8-4 down the barrel. In the NIL transfer portal era 2 years ago, the SEC sent Georgia to Austin, to Oxford, and to Tuscaloosa. They won the SEC. Bama still got a pulse. They're just not Saban. Ole Miss has had a really good go of it. They got a really good quarterback and running back coming back. And all the while, I'm telling you about all these teams that are either in the playoff or knocking on the door of the playoff. And I'm not mentioning Florida. I'm not mentioning LSU. I haven't mentioned Tennessee in that realm, even though they made the playoff last year. Auburn is a joke right now. You think those schools are going to stay down forever? If you want to suggest that the SEC has taken a step back from the Saban-Kirby dominance and the Joe Burrow / 2011 SEC teams, okay. If you want to say the SEC has fallen way behind the Big Ten, I'm going to fight you on that. I think they're on a level playing field. But if I'm going to take rung for rung in those conferences, and I'm going to look at the top rung with Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, and I'll throw Indiana right there. I'll put those teams up against Alabama, Georgia, Texas, A&M. I'll do that. And if you want to go to the next rung of the Big Ten and you want to start talking about Iowa, you want to start talking about Wisconsin, you want to start talking about those teams, well, I'm going to take the upside and the potential and the ability of LSU and Auburn and Ole Miss and Tennessee. I'm going to take that. Oklahoma. That's still going to be more powerful year over year. What I'm doing here is not singling out individual programs. I'm talking about the collective of the SEC. And if you look at its whole, it's going to have championship contenders every year. the portal, I think it's less about everybody's paying players now, so the SEC, which was cheating, is cooked. I think your ability to stack 4- and 5-star players every single year and keep them for 4 years is gone. And I also think there are individual good players at smaller schools, at Louisiana Lafayette and James Madison and Texas State and wherever, Oklahoma State or whatever, and they can individually go to Indiana or individually go to Missouri or individually go to Arizona State or Texas Tech, and that helps you build that roster with 22-year-olds. It's more about parity as opposed to free fall. And I think as I looked at the survey that kind of listed out these things, it indicates that most people think that the SEC has lost a grip on college football. I guess that depends on what you mean a grip. But if you think in the next 10 years, the SEC is not going to win 4, 5, 6 national championships, I would bet you on that. I know they haven't played in the last 3. They've been close. I just don't think you're going to see a Big Ten run quite like the SEC. It's going to take Michigan and Ohio State really whipping it into gear over the next 4 years. It could happen. I'm not ruling out the SEC's teams. I'm not ruling out Lane Kiffin and Baton Rouge. I'm not ruling out Mike Elko in College Station. I'm not ruling out Sark in Austin. Certainly not ruling out Kirby. I'm not going to rule out Kalen DeBoer, even though I don't feel super awesome about it. And I think you're going to see the SEC swim just fine. It's a fascinating time in college football. But to say that the Big Ten's going to run off 4 of the next 5, 5 of the next 6, I'll bet you on that. I don't know that's going to happen. Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Let's talk about Swing Easy Golf Club here in Baton Rouge. SwingEasyGCBR.com. SwingEasyGCBR.com. Can be a little chilly this weekend. Want to play some golf? You can. Indoors, Swing Easy on the simulator. Awesome place to hang out. Get you a bucket of beers, crank the tunes up, watch some TV, and play some of the best golf courses in the world on the simulator. St. Andrews, right there. Troon, right there. Carnoustie, right there. You want to play some of those British Open courses? You hit the drives. You hit the iron shots. There's chips, putting. It's a lot of fun. You can compete against your friends or just see what your best score can be. And the best part, you don't have to play 5.5 hours for 18 holes like it can be sometimes on a course around town. You can play 18 holes in an hour and a half. Get it done. Never have to look for balls or drive your cart to the next one. You just put the ball down and play away. It's a great place to play, to work on your game, to enjoy some fun with friends. Got some family in town? You can do that as well. They're on Perkins, or in Segan at Perkins. SwingEasyGCBR.com. SwingEasyGCBR.com. All right, when we come back, big picture, LSU Athletic Department next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets, tub-to-shower conversions. That's the bread and butter over there at One Bath and Closets. If you've got a big tub that you don't use, or it doesn't work, or you just like more room in the shower, they can do it. Take out that tub. It's using a lot of space in your bathroom. Put that gorgeous glass walk-in shower. If you're saying, well, I already have a shower, but I would like to do that tub-to-shower conversion, what do I do with 2 showers? Well, take that shower out, make it a linen closet. All the time, David Duvall and his team do work like that. If you're thinking, I don't know if I want to pay for that, they've got financing options available, and they can make it happen for you. 18 months at 0%, same as cash if you qualify. Get that free consultation today at OneBathAndClosets.com. OneBathAndClosets.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Talk some Saints, top of hour number 2. Chris Blair with us in about 20 minutes. Mark Athers talking baseball at 2:30. I want to talk some big picture LSU Athletic Department here.
and it's discussing what you want to decide as new athletic director Vert Osbury and how you want to run this program, because this is going to be one of the biggest items on athletic directors' plates moving forward across the country. And I think it's relevant at LSU when you look at men's basketball. I think y'all are aware that there are just north of $20 million available in revenue sharing for this scholastic year. And that number gradually increases over time, but let's just talk about this year at $20.1 million. And these numbers I'm going to give you are not concrete, but they're close. They're close enough where I feel very comfortable having the discussion. But you got about $20 million to spend in revenue sharing, meaning what you take in as an athletic department and you immediately distribute back to the players. Football takes 75% of that. It's right about $16 million. Then you've got men's basketball right about 2.1, just over $2 million. Then you've got women's basketball that gets about $900,000. And then there's in the neighborhood of $900,000 remaining, and baseball is going to take about $350 of that. So women's basketball at $900, baseball at $350. And that gets you up close to that $20.1 million. And what athletic directors now have to figure out is, okay, who do I allocate this money to? You heard Tony Vitello when he left Knoxville say, yeah, we didn't like the revenue sharing distribution. We thought baseball was way on the short end, and that's something that irritated him. And there's no rule that determines how you have to allocate this. I know this. Mississippi State is dipping into that football money and giving some to baseball. Coastal Carolina is dipping way out of the football money of theirs. That's not as big as LSU's budget, and they're all in on baseball. You know the Duke administration is not going to funnel $15.8 million to football and send men's basketball too. That ain't how it's going to work at Duke. So at LSU, you've got to decide how much you're going to give football. It's going to demand a lot. How much are you going to give women's basketball? How much are you going to give baseball? You think Kim Mulkey and Jay Johnson are just going to sit on the sideline and go, yeah, whatever you want, just handle that however you want to? Absolutely not. Those are multi-time national championship coaches that want their money. And then you got men's basketball at LSU. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Because if you are in the market in a month and a half, 2 months, you don't think the prospective coach that you're looking at is going to ask you about revenue sharing? What are you going to tell him? I'm looking around the SEC. I don't see a lot of schools really, really, really performing in football, men's basketball, women's basketball, and baseball. Not a lot. I start looking around, like Alabama, their baseball program stinks, relatively speaking. Men's basketball, cooking. Football, a lot of money going into it, you know. Women's basketball, Florida, they got basketball rolling. Baseball's always been good. What's the football program doing? They can't even make a bowl game. You look at Arkansas. Basketball is up and cooking with Calipari. Awesome. In baseball, Dave Van Horn. Their athletic director comes up and says, yeah, we probably can't compete in football. Said that to the Touchdown Club. Like Tennessee, I would argue, like they're doing pretty good in football, made the playoff last year. Baseball's been a power. We'll see what they are without Tony V. Women's basketball is a big deal there. Men's basketball's been good under Rick Barnes. Like, it's not impossible to get it done, but like, what do you want to be? How do you want to allocate the funds? And I could go to 5 different LSU fans out in the parking lot in 2 weeks and ask them to draw a pie chart out of how you would do that, and they would all look different. And the question is, what is Vert Osbury going to prioritize? This is the athletic director's salary cap. What do you want to spend money on? And I think it puts men's basketball here at LSU in a weird spot. Because there are some people who would say, you cannot touch football. There are some people who would say, give the money to women's basketball, at least they win. There are some that would say, are you kidding me? This is the preeminent baseball program. Dump money into that. And there are some people that would say, hey, Men's basketball is the second biggest revenue sport in collegiate athletics. Spend money on that to make more money. And there are some people that would say, who gives a rip about men's basketball? We stink. There are some people that say, I've never watched a women's basketball game in my life. There are some people that say, no one cares about baseball except LSU fans. Spending a bunch of money on that is stupid. There is no right and wrong here. It's just an interesting discussion. And I believe that LSU's passion towards men's basketball, since I've been in Baton Rouge in 2006, has been dwarfed 2 different times by women's basketball, most of the time by baseball, and certainly all the time by football, which is a different beast because football's got to fund the whole thing. Football craters, you got no shot. But this is the interesting situation at LSU. Every athletic department is a little bit different. And if you get into the market for a men's basketball coach, this is going to be line item 1 or 2 in his questioning of Verge Osbury, and there has to be an answer. Because if you want to go get a proven basketball coach, well, he's not coming if you tell him, yeah, Kim Mulkey wants this and Jay Johnson wants this, and you know Lane Kiffin's getting this, so here's what I can give you. That dog won't hunt. It's a hard spot to be in. You don't want to lose Kim Mulkey. You don't want to lose Jay Johnson. You want to fund Lane Kiffin stuff. You got to rob Peter to pay Paul somewhere. It's a very difficult position for Verge Osbury to be in. I've got my thoughts on it. You've got your thoughts on it. Those don't matter. It's Verge's deal. So we'll see. It's a fascinating spot for LSU athletics to be in. We'll pause for national headlines at SportsCenter. We'll come back. 1 more hour to go on this Thursday edition of the Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Lifetime Roofing, lifetimeroofingla.com is the website. Are you looking for a job? Lifetime Roofing can help you with a job. They're one of the only legitimate W-2 roofing companies in the entire state of Louisiana. Not the only one. One of the only ones. They give benefits. They've got a 401k. If you want a job, you want benefits, you want some stability, Lifetime Roofing can absolutely help. This is another way they help the community. Certainly, they're helping out the community in times of need when there are disasters like we had last week, when there is an inevitable hurricane. And they're helping with their services in terms of roofing. But they also help the community they care so much about because they're from here in terms of hiring folks, keeping them here, giving them benefits, giving them quality pay, a 401k. That's what you can get at Lifetime Roofing. Check them out online at lifetimeroofingla.com and work for them. Lifetime Roofing, LA.com.